Welcome to My Moon Time. In this recording, we do have some adult language. You may choose to want to listen with your headphones on. If so, now's the time. All right. Hello. Welcome. I'm Dana Gillespie, creator of My Moon Time app. I have Eliza Kane with us here today, and we're going to have a beautiful little conversation about breathwork and what Eliza offers. So hello, welcome Eliza. How are you?
Hi, Dana. I'm good. So good to be here with you.
Yay. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and the breathwork that you amazingly teach and offer for a very long time now?
I know. Wow, we're it's going on, I think, just over a decade now. So I've been practicing this work, which I got introduced to out in LA when I was 25 years old, a while ago. And it got introduced to me at a very pivotal point in my life, and it became just very it just it became a very integral part of my whole healing journey. And this practice, I just keep diving into. I was teaching a class out in Venice, California, which is where you and I met and got introduced. And after that, I was in Aspen, Colorado. And recently I moved back east to the New York area. And now I'm bringing my work online. So that's been really exciting to just start sharing with a whole new audience in the online space.
Yay. I'm so excited and glad to be here with you today. I wanted to do for everyone listening this session, this conversation with Eliza. So in particular in January tends to be a month for a lot of individuals where it can feel a little bit stressed, rushed, exhausted, but also exciting because that newness of a new calendar year. And this breath work that I've been doing, as Eliza said, for a very long time, is a favorite of mine. And it's the single most powerful tool I've ever experienced to kind of reset myself immediately and quickly. So it's like, I like to say or tell people about this breath work. It's like getting high naturally, or another way to look at it is if you've ever gone on vacation, you come home from vacation. It's like, I need a vacation from my vacation, a little, 20, 30-minute breathwork session that Eliza leads or guides through can reset you into this space where you're like, oh my God, I feel fantastic. Like I feel clean and energized and refreshed and amazing. So this was kind of a fun conversation we wanted to have for everyone listening to help you start your new year off feeling refreshed and energized, because the end of the year can have a lot of energy on it or with it, and responsibilities, expectation, family stuff, and the new year brings with it a lot of different mental pieces. And then depending on where you're living in the world, it could be, super, snowing and cold or overcast. So I love this work. This work is very powerful. I have a lot of different tools I work with for myself, but this is that single one tool experience that I have used and experienced for myself that I'm like, oh my God, this is so quick and powerful. And Eliza and I were just having a conversation today about why aren't we doing this more often? Like we've been practicing this for so long, and it's like when we actually lay down on the mat and do this for like 30 minutes. Whew, I mean, I just did it before I got on this phone call, and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit more centered. I let go of yesterday's energy and today's all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can actually have clear thoughts and breathe deeply and feel amazing. So thank you for being here. And for everyone listening, I hope you guys get some benefit or insight about this. Eliza, will you share a little bit kind of for people that are listening to this and are new to this style of breathwork? Will you kind of describe what this breath work is called? And if someone showed up to, like, let's say you got to do an in-class um, session with a lot of people, what would that look like? What is that? What's that all about?
So I love how you introduce the breath work just as it's such a fun way to relax, and it's a very soothing practice that's also very, very clearing. And so what's unique about this is that it's done all through an open mouth. So you get to lay down and you do a two-part inhale, one-part exhale. The first inhale goes into the lower abdomen, and then the second inhale goes into the upper chest. And then you just get to breathe it out nice and easy, nice and gentle exhale. And you find a nice steady rhythm. So you're laying down, you're listening to music, and you're just following this fluid breathing pattern. You're pulling in a little bit of extra oxygen, but it's very gentle. It's just like you've said, it's a very soothing practice. It's not aggressive. So as you're breathing, you're starting to slowly relax your nervous system and slowly relax your mind. And that's where you really experience that sense of like relief of, oh my God, this feels so good. I get to just take a break. I get to clear away anything that's not mine, anything I might have picked up. I get to just slow down and be here and now. And that's extremely nourishing for people. We're in such a go society that it's actually amazing how something as simple as just pausing and breathing like that can be so shifting, like, and the plus is that you are pulling in extra oxygen. So you get that high almost of, oh my God, this feels so good. Why am I not doing this more?
Oh, so fantastic. Um, the because so there's so much. I love that meditation and wellness is kind of one of the, I would say, at least in the United States, biggest opening markets, or everyone's just really into it and opening to it. But there's so many styles of breath work out there. It's very confusing, even myself, when friends are like, oh, I have this, you got to do this style of breath work. And I'm like, okay, I've been trained in many, many forms of breath work. Which breath work are you speaking to? So will you talk a little bit about the particular, what you call this breath work, and things like that, to kind of show people the difference between what you do and other stuff out there?
Yeah, no, definitely. Cause you're right. It's exciting in one way because breathwork is becoming so mainstream, yet it's also can be confusing because there's so many different techniques and they all serve different purposes. So I always do invite people play, explore, find what feels good to you. Cause at the end of the day, it's really like what resonates with you is the most important. But what I really love about this style, and it's pranayama yoga is what it's called, which is working with your breath. And there really is no unique name around it. Like some things are called holotropic breathing or rebirthing. This is just breath work. And it was taught to me by David Elliott, who you have also worked with. And he shared this practice. And what is unique about it, that not just the open mouth technique, but the element of gentleness. So the intention of this practice is to ease the breath into your body, to find fluidity in your rhythm, where certain breathwork techniques are a little bit more forceful. I don't want to say some are forceful. Some are much more fiery. And it's a lot of like discipline and focus, which can be really wonderful. I find though in society right now, one of our biggest challenges is learning to like let go, to soften, to trust, to not have to control so much in our mind, but to actually find that fluidity and guidance in the body. And that's what this breath work really does. It pulls you out of the mind and down into your senses. So you start to feel more and engage more with the feeling body, and also really engage with the heart. The second inhale that you take, it's centered right into the heart space. And that's really where so much of the magic happens. Because when that heart opens, when you're in that space, your perspective of life, your experience of life is very different. And it's really beautiful and enjoyable. And um, it's just, yeah, just a very different experience of life when you're open like that. And that's what this practice really encourages, is softening and opening. Yeah.
So cool. And you just, I mean, I feel amazing afterwards, like every single time I feel fantastic. So I'm like, oh my gosh, more people have to, I really hope they get to experience this. I should probably touch on a little bit that for my moon time listeners, my moon time being a female menstrual and wellness practice, the nervous system and the menstrual cycle are like connected, one and the same. So by doing this breath work and doing it, I would suggest as often as you can, not excessively, but quite often would be very beneficial. This will help reset and rebalance your menstrual cycle. This is that nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic balance component to really help you get centered. And you'll hear time and time again, more and more doctors are talking about it. Like, you can go and eat the healthiest diet. You can take all the supplements in the world. But if you are stressed out to where you can't let go, and it's just all sorts of different, things going on in your mind. And a lot of people, will just, shove off the whole idea of like, oh, just calm down, okay, you're stressed out, just calm down, it'll be fine. But that's not how the mind, the subconscious mind work. You can't just tell yourself to calm down. Otherwise, stress wouldn't really be an issue for humans. So this work is for me so powerful and so beautifully beneficial for females in their menstrual cycle, and also, males, a menstruating person. It just really helps balance the body and the mind, and you feel amazing afterwards. Like so I have so many stories and experiences myself of myself and my friends when they finish a session, they're like, I think I told you, Eliza, one friend was like, I literally just felt like I was flying. What the hell?
I know, it's better than any drug. Like seriously, like you just do some breathing and you will get that adventure. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think it might be kind of fun a little bit to touch on how you got into this breath work, and how I know you shared with me how it helped your menstrual cycle and your female body. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to, because it was very pivotal in that I used to struggle a lot. Like my menstrual cycles were very, very painful. And it was very much what you talked about. I think there was so much stress and contraction in my whole body that it was just only natural that during my menstrual cycle it would intensify. And so it really was learning to just relax, especially right before my cycle and during it, giving myself permission to slow down and to just let go of a lot of the worry. I had so much worry that the breath work really helped me just kind of move through. And it also really supported me in the relationship with my body. A huge reason why I had so much pain during my menstrual cycles, I was really disconnected from my body. So I didn't know how to really engage with my cycle. So with the breath work, I really learned to understand that my body wasn't my enemy. Because you think about it, like when you're in pain, I would get mad at my body instead of just being like, no, there's something here my body's trying to communicate. And so the breathwork really opened me up to that relationship with the body, of understanding this is this incredible vessel we're operating. And as we get to know it and understand it, we can actually really support it in feeling good. And then we just have so much more of an enjoyable experience of life, because when we feel good in our bodies, in our own skin, it's so much easier to really feel good in our day-to-day life. And so that was a big part. The breath work really brought me back in and taught me a lot about my body and the messages it wanted to share with me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh man, such good pieces. I hope more and more people give themselves the opportunity to do this breath work. It's so simple and easy. And I know you and I laugh at ourselves often about like, how am I not doing this more often? But I know when we show up and actually get on the mat, it's like, oh, all right, all is right with the world again, in my own mind. Not that, there's not things going on in the world, but I just feel so centered and balanced, and you know, like I'm high naturally. It's just that amazing, amazing feeling. Um, yeah, yeah. So with your practice right now, I know you teach online, you have group sessions and you have one-on-one sessions. With all of that you're doing, is there anything in particular right now that's like sparking in particular joy for you? What is really um, illuminating your life right now with this work? Is there anything in particular?
Yeah. So, um, just so with the breath work, it not only, it helps me in so many different areas of your life. There's so many layers to the practice. And a beautiful experience I've always had with the breath work is it opened me to my creativity. I didn't realize I had this whole creative side to myself. I had been so logical and linear, and it was taking the time to get out of my head and to really take a break from a very active mind that then allowed all this creativity to come in. And I started writing and poetry and song, and it was this really fun experience of just learning about myself in a whole new way and be like, oh my gosh, like I can do this. And really, it really brought me back to life and excited me in a lot of ways. And so recently, got back into some creative writing that I have been doing and I've been working on for years, and I keep kind of pushing it to the back burner. But I've been making time for it again. And so it really does spark a lot. And I'm really excited to just see where this project will take me, because it definitely opens me to like a lot of excitement and possibility. You work with creative energy. It's a really fun energy to play with and just have a little more fun in life, like
Yes, yes,
shake
yes.
off intensity and play and imagine, that imagination.
So do you lay down and do like a breathwork session, and then you go, when you come out of it, you go and like, work on your projects? Is that what you're doing?
It depends. So sometimes, yes, like if I'm feeling like I'm not really sure, I'm feeling unclear, then I'll lay down, because, as you've talked about, the breath work brings a lot of clarity. It really helps recenter us. And so sometimes that will then take me into a space where the insight will come in and it will inspire me. But other times, like if I started writing in the morning, what will happen is I'll start to get like very activated, like a lot of energy moving. Have you ever seen Limitless, the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper? It's like
I know
super
of it. I don't know if I watched it or not. That's funny.
okay. So anyways, it's about taking like a pill and like you receive like 100% brain capacity. But anyways, he talks about how when he gets going and he gets like in his zone, if he doesn't like pause and slow down, he actually blacks out, because it's like he couldn't keep up with the momentum he created. So what I that exact thing doesn't happen to me, but with creativity, I'll start to pick up a lot of momentum. And I know some people will do this, they're working on an idea of their business. And if I don't take a little like siesta almost, or a pause, then I can push myself a little bit too far. So I actually use the breath work to also regulate my energy. So if I'm starting to spin or just move too quickly, I'll lie down. It will start to, and I'll use the breath work to regulate out. So I'll do it kind of midday, in between the creative writing.
Oh, nice, nice. It's funny when you just spoke, I could watch your cadence of how you were talking about like the fast and the creativity. And then once you start talking about breath work, you're like, and then I got slow, and your communication slowed down too. That was so amazing. I'm like, oh, that's rad.
Yes. And you know me, that's something I have to work with, and so the breath work really supports me in that process, for sure. Yeah.
When you lead group classes, you tend to be very beautifully slow and loud and nurturing. So it's really cool to watch you speak and kind of see how your mind works when you're, in your creativity and writing. Cause like, yeah, your mind is like lightning fast. That's fantastic.
It's a blessing and a curse. It's one of those things that if I don't regulate it, it's a little overbearing, but if I channel it, like if I like learn to direct it in the right way, it's wonderful. And it's also what allows me to hold space for bigger groups because I learned to feel a lot and hold a lot. And that's what when you have a big group, like you've been in those groups where it's very palpable, like people are moving, they're activating, it's a very exciting, like enlivening experience. And to hold it, I have to be like really focused, and I have to practice, like I have to kind of train myself to hold that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
For those of you listening, Eliza led a phenomenal breathwork group session. It was on, I think, Wednesdays in Venice, right?
Yeah, good memory.
Wednesdays evening in Venice at the Quest. And then you
Yeah.
also did one, I think, on Monday mornings at like 10 a.m. for writers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where we would do the breath work first. And then I would just have them write. And then they would have the option to share afterwards if they wanted to. So yeah.
And I know because 10 a.m. in Venice, and I was coming from Hollywood, was way too far and hard for me to get to. But I
Yeah.
would, the Wednesday one, there was packed. And like we showed up for, religiously to your sessions. They were phenomenal. That group dynamic in this breath work is just, I can't wait to do it again. Let's just say.
And that was such a special group of people that came together at that time, because this was this was back in 2013, where a lot of people still were like, what's breath work? And so the group that showed up, I think, was a lot of people that were just ready. Like they were, they're leaders. They're people that are like ready to step forward and innovate. And so it was a very unique group as well that came together. It was very, very wonderful.
Yeah, well, that's LA and Venice too for you, right?
So true.
Oh, it was such an amazing experience. Another component of this work, aside, with menstrual cycles and health and wellness, and just, I mean, any practice that's going to help me feel centered and relaxed and amazing and a deep reset, I'm all about. But I think a really cool component that is unique to this work that blows my mind is the synchronicity that shows up when I start doing this work. And you have spoken to me about this before, because I will, like, for example, I did when I was in David Elliott's group healer training series with you years ago. And I had that weekend, and I think during the day we would all show up together as a group, and he would, do the stuff, we'd have our practices. And then the evenings I would go to work to my, LA members club. And that weekend had the most insane, amazing, synchronistic, amazing, cool, miraculously, whatever experiences. I can't. They were so cool, and just random, amazing things, and people I was interacting with just kind of came together. And I know I shared this with you before, and you're like, yeah, that's really what the breath work does and lands in. So if you want to speak more to that, because I think that's such a unique piece to this work in particular that I love.
Yeah, it is. And it's fun because it causes you almost wanted to lean into life more. Not almost, like you want to lean more into life because you open to something bigger than you. And it's not even definable. None of us, I think, really even know, but there is something about this practice that when you start engaging with it, life does start showing up differently. These synchronicities start coming in, and I don't know if it's just that you're tapping in more, like you're connecting to a deeper layer of life that is then making, or you're just more aware. Maybe it's because you're more clear, so you're more aware of what's happening all around you. but whatever it is, I agree. There's something about this that is really special. And you know, we say magical, but I think that that's just more, you're coming back to yourself, like you're anchoring into who you are. And I think from that authentic place, you're attracting what is going to resonate a lot more with you versus what's not, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I just know every time I do this work, it always just kind of opens up and things become more synchronistic, magical. Magical is a funny term. Like I love the term, but it's also very kind of airy fairy, but like just things. It's like, I have like an idea of where I want to go, and then, but things will happen in different directions, but really quickly and amazingly, like more than I thought could happen. And I'm like, how is this even happening right now? Like, okay, I don't know how, but thank you. This is amazing.
Yeah. And I think part of it is you're also letting go of control. Like this practice is so much about letting go of control. And we're so programmed to think everything happens like in the mind, but the mind only knows what it knows. And so this practice kind of reminds us, hey, there's so much more going on here than we realize. And if you can just relax and trust life a little bit more, life's going to like show up and surprise you in a really good way. But we have to get out of our own way. And so in so many ways, this practice is just really about getting out of your own way. It's like, get out of your way, let your life work out. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be easy. It doesn't have to be so hard. We can let go of
Yeah,
that old
hard and
story.
scary. Yes.
Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be so like intense and I've got to do this, this, and this. It's just like, maybe if I show up, life's going to bring me this and this and this, and I'm going to get to the same place. It's just going to be a hell of a lot more enjoyable of a ride.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so true. Well, I, continue to go back to, someone years ago spoke to that, reminded that, the biological female body is biologically hardwired to hold energy for like 9 to 10 months. So, one of the single best things that, a menstruating person, a female, can do is learn to let go, because the body is so ready to, like, okay, I'm, here to, make a baby, make a creation, and so we're really
Yeah.
good at holding energy. So learning how to let go is one of the single best things we can do, which I love that whole idea. Like, yeah, that actually makes so much sense. And I'll say to this work that, this breath work that you lead and guide people in groups with is, for me, and you spoke to the feeling aspect, but like when you and I were working once, and I did have I would call it a gigglegasm, uncontrollable giggling just came over me. I couldn't stop, but it really felt like an area outside. I could feel it on my skin, but a big, thick area outside my body just completely cleared and was like full of like warm, tingling ease. And it was so visceral feeling for me. I'm like, and that's like the same when that happened, that session that you held space for me with. It was that same weekend where like so many amazing synchronistic things happened that were so fantastic. And I'm like, so it was not so much just that life became magical for me or amazing, but it was also that I felt so good, like viscerally felt amazing. Like this is fantastic. So that's a big piece of this work that I love, that I'm like, okay, yeah, you feel good afterwards, but no, you really feel good afterwards.
You do. And you bring in such a key point where you talked about the visceral experience of it. So we're in a time of information bombardment where we hear about all these things that are wonderful and amazing. Yeah, what's so beautiful about the breath work is it gives you the experience. And so obviously you have to practice it, like you have to do it, but it creates like that tangible reality where it's not so ethereal. It's not, oh, that sounds like a great idea out there. It becomes practical to you because you start to notice these shifts and changes in your body. And then they are reflected. Like your life really does start to change. And sometimes you sit back and you're like, I mean, I guess I'm being different, but it's so subtle sometimes that you don't even really realize it until you really realize it. You're like, oh my gosh, like this is very different than the way it used to be.
It's so, so good. So good. I think it might be kind of fun to share a little bit more about your teacher, David Elliott, who I know, and kind of how he got into this work, just to kind of give a little bit of backstory on this particular um, style of breath work. And I can also say, because I have been kind of searching for this work my entire life. Like I was a long distance runner in high school and I continued to run in college. But for me, it was always getting into the breath work. And I did holotropic breath work, which was it was like a 3 hour. I don't like that breath work. It was 3 hours and was way too intense. This is, generally 20, 30, 45 minutes. And like you guys all play rad music. So it's very evocative. But I think kind of giving a little background of David and how he got into it might be kind of cool. So people kind of like, who came up with this work? Where did it come from? Like, well, is there rules to it and all that good jazz?
Yeah, no, David is a wonderful human being. He really is, and he's unique and special in so many ways that you do. When you work with him, you feel very fortunate to have worked with him. And whereas the way he was introduced to the practice was very unique, and I will share that in a second. What I do really appreciate about him is he keeps it really simple. And that's what's so great about this practice is it's simple. It doesn't have to be complex. There doesn't have, you can engage these different tools, but at the end of the day, all you have to do is show up and breathe. And you're in, and as little as actually 7 minutes, your nervous system will start to respond. Like you'll literally feel your nervous system starting to relax and open. So it's really wonderful about that. But David, so he is a Kentucky boy, Southern boy, and he was going through a really challenging period in his life where he has a unique gift called clairaudience. And clairaudience is when you can hear other people's thoughts, or you get this guidance through a voice that you can hear. And he was having a lot of trouble in relationships because he always kind of assumed you could hear the person's question before they asked it. And he didn't realize what was happening, but it was causing a lot of challenge in his life. And he was asking for answers, and he got introduced to this mystic, Tim Heath. And I think they were in Sedona. I forget exactly where, but the mystic introduced David to then the breathwork. And David had a very powerful experience, and it was very prolific. And he was Tim also had a lot of answers for David. And he said to him, David, I'm actually just introducing you to this work, reminding you of this work. You introduced this to me in many lifetimes ago. I know David was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this just sounds super out there, way too crazy for him. But Tim also had a lot of answers for him, and they ended up creating a really incredible relationship. And, David learned a lot about it and then moved on to create actually the healer trainings. So the breathwork is just one component of the work. And then David's created the healer trainings, which you've gone through, and dive a little bit more in depth into intuition and exchange and lots of other things that the breathwork brings forward.
I love it. I love it. And I love hearing those stories because they're so cool. And it's such a great piece or pieces to speak to, because like you said, David is such that great person where it's just kind of like, it's all good. It's very simple. It's not regimented. It's not controlled. It's like, it's all good. We're here to learn and play and explore. And I love that.
Yeah. And he brings in the component of the earth, which is, I think, part of why he's so grounded and clear, because he believes a lot of so many of the challenges that people are going through right now. A huge part of it is the disconnect we're experiencing from the earth. And so through the breath, when we connect more deeply into our hearts and more deeply into our body, we naturally engage more deeply with the earth. And it's just a beautiful thing. It fills a lot of people up. They feel very nourished from developing that relationship more fully.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Um, if people wanted to come and take your classes or work with you, What does that look like right now? What do you suggest? What's a good way to start doing this if somebody wants to experience, I want to get high naturally, like, hello, yes, I want to feel reset from all the chaos of my life I'm in. How would I go out and, work with you? What's that like right now?
Yeah, well, right now we are currently online. Everything is kind of online in the moment. So going to my website, elizarosekane.com, you'll find information. There's actually some free meditations there. There's a weekly class that I offer. I also do private sessions, which are great if you want a little bit more guidance in getting introduced to the work, or if you have something in particular you want help addressing. The private sessions are great for that. But then, come the spring, a lot more is going to be opening up. I'm actually going to be teaching an intensive, the Healer Training 1 in Aspen in June, and that's going to be in person, which is really fun. And I'll do some stuff in New York City in the spring as well, hopefully on some rooftops. So best bet is to get on my newsletter, and I keep people updated with all the fun events that will hopefully be happening in person sooner than later.
I love that. I love that. Oh, it's all good. I've taken classes with you in person. I've had privates with you. Oh my God, that private I did with you that one time. As soon as I think I was leaving and more magical synchronistic things happen. I'm just like, the more I talk about it and I remember, and I'm like, I need to be doing this work every day. Like, I don't know why I'm not. It's just,
I get it.
in condition. It's just like, should tie like a little ribbon around my finger, like, Tina.
It's almost like we're like, but no, then it's too easy. And it's like, why? Like, why is that a problem?
There's that famous saying, some yogi spoke about it, like the most challenging component of yoga is getting yourself to the mat. And that's exactly what is going on for me with this work. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I've been practicing yoga since I was in elementary school. So it's like, yoga's not the issue. It's
Really?
the work. Yeah. My, growing up, one of my childhood best friends, Katrina, her mom, Beth, was kind of like a hippie. And so she had yoga books and stuff. So we would, as little kids, you pull out the yoga books and you're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And yeah, so just been playing in that world. Old school, old soul,
I love it. That's amazing. That's such a good, because it just gets so instilled so naturally. Like you said, like yoga, no big deal, because you've been doing it since you were a kid. That's really good stuff. Yeah.
For me, it's more of like, someone once described yoga to me and I loved it as like an internal tourniquet system to clean out the organs, but it's also for me like stretching and helps me kind of flow in my body. So it's just a practice I do, like someone would go get a massage, which I also do, but it helps me just actually be in my body and have a body. And if I'm not doing it regularly, my body's like, Tin Man, totally still.
Which is not fun.
No, not fun. Not fun at
Oh.
all. But yeah, so privates with you are amazing, but the breathwork online in groups, I highly recommend and love, and really, really fun. On your newsletter, I've been watching, that's been going out for a while. You also have been adding in a component of herbs. Like you'll talk about an herb every month. And I love reading that because you'll bring insights to like a healing herb that you'll do a group breath work with. It's so beautiful. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Yeah. I teamed up with Elliot to do that actually. David's niece, she's a good friend of mine, and we do botanical breathwork. And it is very much about deepening the relationship with our bodies and the earth. And Elliot's an herbalist. So she's out in Durango and she picks the plant that we're going to be working with. And I agree with you. It's so fun because there's all this energy behind the plant and the ways that it supports us medicinally, but also energetically. And it's really cool to really acknowledge how aligned we are with nature. And like when we start, and just how we can really follow nature, like nature is always guiding us. And so it is really fun. And that's all I also think what moon time is so much about too. Like when you get in your own cycle, it is about like, what are the cycles with the earth? What is the moon cycle, and how does it really affect us? And how can we engage with it in a really fun way? Because it's fascinating, actually. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is so brilliant. like we only understand it a little, but what we can understand is really just really cool stuff.
I love that. Yeah. Learning how to flow and balance. That's exactly what I was, my goal, my aim has been with my moon time is like helping
Yeah.
each, female and menstruating person be like, okay, this is where you're most likely at today on your menstrual cycle. And here's, where the moon's at. And then, wherever you are on planet Earth, like go outside and see what else is, how would you say interacting with you and how do you interact with it? And yeah, I love that component with the herbs. Did you get a chance yet to listen to the new Michael Pollan book on caffeine?
Oh,
Caffeinated caffeine. Oh my God, it's so good. You have to grab it on, I think it's exclusively through Amazon. Maybe, I don't know if it's
okay.
only an audiobook. So profound, so amazing, because he talks about the history of these
Yeah.
plants of caffeine from coffee and from tea and
Okay.
how it really shaped humans. Because before caffeine, we, for most societies, not all societies, but most societies were pretty much just drunks because water wasn't safe to drink always, right?
True, that's so true. I forgot they're always drinking mead, right? Some form of
Mead
alcohol.
or the original form of beer is called, what is it called? Because beer was a monk thing, but it really came from women going like collecting herbs and making a type of beer.
Yeah.
This amazing herbalist in LA who made Wave Maiden. It's like an herbal beer because hops actually was what you would drink before you'd go into surgery. It would numb your body. So hops and beer, I mean, if you want to be numb for surgery, great, but like medicinally it's better. And there's a name for it, for the original name of beer, and people make it now and it's great because that way you're not, if you do, hops type of beer, you tend to be kind of frozen comatose. But if you just have a fermented style of wild harvested herbs into, like they do brew beer, it's so good. And I think that Wave Maiden herbalist, she is also formulating for a kombucha company now too. There's such great stuff out there. But with this story of caffeine, it's so profound because he talks about how these plants, how coffee beans and, if I say it correctly, Camellia sinensis tea, there's actually one other plant in North America I know of that has caffeine in it. I forgot which one it is, but essentially caffeine, how it really shaped us as humans. And it's again, Michael Pollan, who's so brilliant about like, we think as humans, it's us, creating destiny. But actually, when we take a step back and remove ourselves, it's like, maybe it's really nature, and their evolution dictating us. And we just kind of, because he talks about, the addiction in our mind to caffeine, because it is one of the most powerful drugs. It's such a good book. I highly recommend it. I think you'll love it. It's so
Fascinating.
fun.
And I love how you always have like so much information, like random things that I'm like, I would have never known that. I feel like you're like almost an encyclopedia in some ways.
There are pieces in me. Well, that's
Yeah.
like that. That's so funny.
I love it. I literally always learn something new when I'm talking to you. And it's so great because I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm totally into that. I'll check that out because I love caffeine. Love it. And that is very interesting because you're right. It's such a different focus than alcohol, because it's like, let's get shit done. And alcohol is more like, I don't want to think it, like, let's just like let it all go. Who cares?
Well, he points out in that book how caffeine really helped birth the Industrial Revolution and capitalism.
Wow.
Yeah, because and coffee breaks, how people that had factories were like noticed that they couldn't get their employees to be focused until caffeine was introduced. It's so fascinating. But when we take a step back and remove ourselves from human consciousness and look at plant evolution and plant, say consciousness, that really a lot of these caffeinated plants have made it so they will thrive on planet Earth, and out kind of, because you look at coffee beans, they're grown everywhere possible that you can. I mean, there's that singer actually, I forgot his name, but he's down in San Diego and Oceanside, and he has a huge organic farm, and he grows beautiful coffee beans in San Diego County. Yes. Yeah. Avocados and coffee beans and all sorts of regenerative stuff, but coffee beans are prolific. I'm more of a green tea drinker. Coffee is too much for my body. In that book, Michael Pollan also goes on to, and it's important for, all humans to be aware, but especially for menstruating bodies, because it's almost like having a female or menstruating body is like driving a Porsche. It's a very powerful tool, but you have to be very precise and know what you're doing. With caffeine, it will be in your bloodstream for 12 hours. And so these people, lots of scientists have been doing so many deep studies on sleep. And what Michael Pollan did, he said when he was writing the book was he didn't want to, but he did a 3-month caffeine fast where he didn't do caffeine at all. And he kind of documented that experience and how unfocused he was. And it really was hard to get focused, but his sleep, he had the deepest sleep like he hadn't had since he was a teenager. And that's what these deep sleep scientists are, seeing and that they're speaking to, and they're talking about, and many other doctors are, like, one of the most powerful things we can do for our health and longevity is to have deep, restful sleep. And so these sleep doctors are actually saying, that I don't love about, because I love my green tea, they don't drink caffeine at all. They're like, no caffeine whatsoever. So you'll have to listen to the audible book to kind of have your takeaway, but like I definitely do my cup of jasmine tea every morning because it's my favorite. And it's so fascinating though, because so many doctors with the menstrual cycle talk about not having caffeine to help reset the nervous system and to help the menstrual cycle balance and stuff, but got to find our balance, because who knows, like even if we might not have a long life and maybe we have a short life, and it's just kind of finding our own balance and weighing the pros and cons. And I love the green tea.
No, and I hear you. Like, I think it's picking like what I always say, like it's the 80-20, like I used to study dietetics in college and I have a whole nutrition background. And I'm like, with eating, it's not about being perfect. If you're good, like 80% of the time, you're crushing it. And 20% of the time, who cares? So it's the same with pick the things, like some things you want to be like really like diligent about, but there's always going to be something. And so for me, I'm like, because I know I'm like, I'm not giving up coffee. I was like, if it's meant to happen, it will happen, but I'm just going to let that be my vice.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by the book. That's going to be really interesting because I love the correlation of how it's shaped, our society and what that looks like.
Yeah. And that connection with nature, it's just kind of like, oh, are we really, who's steering the ship here? We thought we were, but maybe not.
I know. And I think that's I love it because that's one of the biggest things the breathwork does. It almost humbles you too, where you're like, wow, like there's a lot more going on here than I realized. So maybe I should be more curious than, I know the answer, because you realize how much you don't know.
What's that saying? Like when you think you know it all, you know nothing, something along, like there's a famous phrase like that. It's like the moment you think you know it all, you absolutely know nothing.
Yeah, I know. And then like, I think someone else does the opposite. Like the more I know, the more I realize how little I do know. Cause it's so, but that's what makes life exciting. And I think that's a really fun place to be. It's just fun. It's interesting.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, it was so great getting to connect with you today and be on here and share you and your knowledge and your breath work and your experiences with everyone. And I hope people get a chance to connect with you and get the opportunity to take classes with you. And I will say, for people that are new to this whole idea, me being a student of you, Eliza, when you go to take a class, either online or in person, I can share from experience, you're going to lay down on a yoga mat. If you're not in person, you're online, you'll probably be covered in a blanket. I usually bring like a little eye pillow because I'm usually in my studio and I have my sleeping eye pillows nearby. And I will incorporate, and you'll probably talk about Eliza too, I'll usually do some essential oils. And then Eliza has beautiful music going to really kind of evoke the thoughts and the feelings. And then one of the cool pieces, like we were just talking about with when you speak to something, like you're speaking with herbs right now, to me, in that group environment, it's almost like, I have my experience of the breath work and the mind for that first 7 minutes where the mind's like, laundry list, and I got to call this person. And eventually it quiets down. You're like kind of just experiencing, and then different awarenesses show up. And then that group experience, when you're kind of holding space with, let's say an herb, to me, it's kind of like Eliza's taken on this journey where she's like painting or pointing out pieces of on the cosmic sky of, okay, we're going to journey here and here and here. And it just happens naturally, but it's like a focused point with an herb. And it's just so magical and amazing what happens. And then the group dynamic itself will shift. It's like, I don't know, one of the coolest roller coaster rides you're ever going to have. And it's just, when you're in it, you feel amazing. When you're done, you're like, okay, I want to do this every day. Like, so please go have this experience with her, because it'll not only be fun and amazing, but it'll shift your life, and it could really much help your menstrual cycle a lot. So
Yeah, it really helped me tremendously. And it is so magical. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Have an amazing year. And I know personally I will be seeing you soon, but thank you for being here with us. And
yeah.
I know we'll be doing something again soon on this video, because there's so much you have to share and help people have an amazing life no matter what's going on. Experiencing those little pockets of bliss that's always there, even though we're like, I feel like shit. And you're like, okay, let's go deeper. And you're like, oh my God, I don't feel like shit anymore.
It is. It's good stuff. Thank you so much for having me. And I hear you. It's such a good time of year to kind of just anchor in some of that good feeling bliss. It's like start the year off on that gentler, more loving and fun, playful note. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we will be talking with you soon. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Please consult your licensed medical professional for any and all medical advice. The information contained here has not been evaluated by the FDA. This information is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease and is provided for educational purposes only. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you have regarding a medical condition and before undertaking any diet, supplement, exercise, or other health program.